Let's do this. Hello, you amazing human beings. Welcome back to Le Video Diary week 2. I'm recording this at the end of week 1, and I realized something that I said last week that wasn't entirely true. I said out loud that I was going all in on the podcast. I said it here, I said it on social media and in other areas. And I was telling people that I was going all in on the podcast. And that wasn't entirely true. Because while I did lose my main freelance client, I had another. And I was scared to let that go. I shared last week about, my worth being tied to money and the money that I'm making. And the podcast right now isn't a sure source of income for me. But that freelance client was. It didn't matter how much it was. And Josh kept telling me last week, Josh is Les Hubs, by the way, he kept pushing me in the best possible way. He said, if you're going to go all in, go all in. You got to do this, right? You got to trust yourself. You got to go all in. You got to give yourself this chance, Lauren. And I was so scared. I was absolutely terrified to let go of what felt like my last piece of string of worth tied to money that I was hanging on to. But I did it. And so as of the end of this month, May, I will be doing nothing but the podcast. And it feels equally terrifying and equally liberating. And I have to be honest with you because I talk a lot about the roller coaster that is life and entrepreneurship. And it's one day you're high on life and the next day you're like, what in the hell am I doing? What is this thing? And then 1 hour you are so proud of this thing that you've created. And then the next you're like, this sucks. What is this that I've done? And it's a freaking roller coaster, up and down and up and down. And I was thinking a lot about how when I sat down to record this video almost exactly 1 week ago, to the minute of me sitting down to record this video, I was so scared. I was so scared to share this with you guys. And I realize that my fear of doing this may to some people have seemed petty or overplayed, but to me it was so real. And I want to say that and put that out there because I don't care what you're doing right now. I don't care if you're scared to just put out a new piece of art that you've created or to, hit publish on a blog post. Your fear is real. And your fear is justified, and no one needs to justify that for you. And I just want to empower you with that truth that if you're feeling afraid, I don't want you to feel ashamed of that fear. I don't want you to feel like it's silly or unimportant because your feelings are very real, and you don't have to feel justified by someone else in order for that feeling to be real. But anyways, back to the roller coaster story. So I sat down and recorded this video last week, scared out of my flipping mind, not even to do the thing, although that was definitely a part of it. But more than anything, I was scared to say it out loud. I was so scared that people, that you guys, the people in my life, my family, my friends, would think that I was a failure, would think that I was just this loser who was quitting my job to make no money and to just go play all day. That's what it felt like. And I don't know. I'm just saying that out loud for the first time. And that feels a little scary. I don't know if any of you business owners and entrepreneurs have felt that way when you've gone all in and taken the leap, but I was so terrified, and it was so heart-filling last week to have people like reach out and just tell me that, you know, that I could do this and that they were proud of me and all of the like wonderful things. But last week was a really terrifying, sad day for me last Sunday as I recorded this. And this Sunday as I sit here, like, I have to be honest with you, I am on top of that roller coaster hill. Like, I feel so good. I feel so excited. I feel so sure. Like, I think it's just this sense of like peace. Like, yeah, duh. It's okay to feel this way. Like, it just, and I don't even know why I feel that way. I don't know, but I do. And it feels really, really good. And who knows what next Sunday holds, because hello, roller coaster. But yeah, I have been journaling my feelings every day, and it's been interesting to see how some mornings I have to journal because I'm terrified and like, you know, that negative self-talk starts happening and I'm questioning everything that I'm doing and my ability to do this. And then the next day, like, I sit down to journal about my feelings and I'm like, I can do this. I've got this. There's nothing in my way. And yeah, I don't know. It really has been this roller coaster ride, but as of today, right now, I'm feeling really, really good. And I think a huge part of why I feel so good is this mental shift I've made about fear and excitement. And I am talking all about that in tomorrow's podcast episode, in the Tuesday episode for this week. So I'm not going to go into detail with that here, but make sure to tune into the podcast tomorrow to hear about that, because it really has made this past week so much easier and so much more exciting for me rather than fueled by fear. As for updates, I felt like last week I was really behind. My goal is to get sponsorships for the podcast. And I've been going all in on that, like really trying to make that happen. But at the same time, I've got to keep the podcast going. And in true life fashion, I got behind on editing the podcast. I try to be a month ahead, and I was like a month behind. So I felt like I spent a large portion of last week just editing the podcast, and it's time consuming. It is so time consuming. And so because of that, I spent a lot less time reaching out for sponsorships. And there were several times, especially on Wednesday and Thursday, where I just felt like a failure. Like, I felt like, here you are trying to make money from the podcast, and yet you've spent no time this week actually making money for the podcast. But at the same time, I felt like last week was a victory of sorts. I have 3 people committed to advertise on the podcast already, which is awesome. And these it's so good. Like, I'm so excited about these advertisements, and I don't want to tell you guys too much right now because I'm so eager and excited for you to hear them on the podcast. I feel really passionate about advertising in ways that's beneficial for me, the person getting paid to do the advertisements, but also for you, the people listening to these advertisements, and also for the other person, like the business that's doing the advertisements. I can't stand advertisements that are impersonal or that make me feel like I'm just being sold to, or that just feel icky and not good. Like, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen them on TV or heard them on the radio or whatever, and they feel fake. Like, that's a really great word for them. And I'm going to tell you what, like, these ads are going to be anything but that. They're not even, an ad's not even a great word for it. It's just going to be so good. And I think that is the easiest part of this for me, is knowing that I can get behind what I'm doing 110% because I'm excited about it. But the hard part for me is money. This is like a theme that I'm realizing. But this is different than the money and worth hard part. Like, this hard part is being like, great, now I need you to pay me. That feels really hard for me to do. and I'm so nervous to do it. I'm so nervous to be like, great, you like this big thing I'm doing too. Now I need your money. It just feels, I'm going to have to, I don't know. I'm going to have to work through that. I'm going to have to practice doing that. I'm going to have to get more comfortable doing it, because while on one hand, I feel like my identity is, and my entire worth is wrapped up in how much I'm getting paid. On the other hand, I feel unworthy of asking for that money, even when I have someone who wants to pay me that money. So, yeah, I think there needs to be an entire podcast episode dedicated to that topic. That's the hardest part for me right here. Like right where I am today, it is being okay with asking people to pay me. And that's a huge part of being able to run a successful, profitable business. Like people have to pay you, and you have to be okay asking for that and accepting that. And so, yeah, we'll see how that goes this week. The other thing that I am just working through that isn't hard from a fear-based place or from a worthiness place, but just from the place of like, oh my God, this is a lot to figure out, is no longer this podcast just being a passion thing and it now being a real live business. Like I've got to figure out how to do contracts for ads, and how do I want to do invoicing for this, and how do I want to keep track of everything, and oh my God, this is a business. This is a business. And at what point do I also feel confident calling this a business, right? Like how much money does it actually have to be making, or does it have to be making any money for me to call it a business? What qualifies it as that? And at what point am I not just qualifying it as a business, but do I really believe and feel like I am running a business? We shall see. So there you have it. Update on week 1, going straight into week 2. I hope that you guys are loving these video diaries. I am really enjoying just getting to sit down in front of the camera. It feels weird. It feels weird not having a microphone right here in front of my face, but I hope you guys are enjoying these. If you do not know about the podcast, come over and check it out. Like I promise, just hearing a voice in your headphones and not having the video is intimate in its own amazing way, and the conversations that are happening on the podcast are just so good. So good. I do have an ask of you guys. If you are watching these videos, if you are a small business supporter, if you are getting anything out of these videos, like any piece of inspiration or the podcast, it would mean the world to me if you would consider supporting me and the podcast through Patreon. I am going to include that link in the show notes, so you can go check that out and find out more there. But for less than the price of a latte, you can support the podcast once a month and me, and also get access to behind the scenes of the podcast, which are funny and inspiring and real, because praise hands for realness. So, thanks again, guys. I will see you next week for Video Diary Week 3.